Greetings, my friends. David Daniel, wonderful to be with you again. So I'm a coach who works with individuals and organizations to help them learn how to thrive in an ever-growing, complex, and uncertain world. And today we're going to talk about what's happening in our minds when we're feeling miserable. And I know that's not the most uplifting subject, but I spend a lot of time with people and clients that I coach, and they say to me, David, I just feel small sometimes. I feel low energy. I feel sad. I feel down. And they say, do you know what I mean? I say, yeah, absolutely, I know what you mean. I've experienced that myself. I was literally sitting in my office a couple of days ago saying out loud, what is going on? Why am I feeling as down as I'm feeling? And I get curious in those situations, and I have some practices that we'll talk about throughout this video that I do when I'm feeling down and miserable. But yeah, I've experienced it. I understand it. And I've gotten feedback from people that, David, you don't show up in a way that seems very happy. They don't use the word miserable, but they say, I feel down, you feel low energy. And so I got curious about this and said, what is it that's happening that causes us to feel miserable? So there's three overarching things that's happening in our minds that make us feel miserable. Number one, when we feel lonely, we feel sad. And in this day of social media, there's a lot of breadth of interaction. There's very little depth. And so what I look for in my own life is when I'm having that breadth of interaction and I'm feeling sad, I'm not authentically connecting to people. And so I go and seek out an authentic connection, an energetic connection. I give someone a hug. I try to ask someone how they're doing and then really be present with them as they're answering. Or I go seek out a friend and say, hey, can we just talk for a few minutes? So seek out ways to authentically connect when you're feeling lonely. And it might help you with any feelings of misery you're having. Second thing that causes us to feel miserable or sad is when we feel afraid. So if there are things in your life that you're afraid to do, or you feel unmotivated to do them because of fear, a lot of times that for me creates talk that is self-criticism, negative self-talk, you can't do this. We talked about that in an earlier video about confidence. But the move when we're feeling fear is actually visualize what it will be like to go through the worst experience you could imagine. So if you're fearing standing up in front of a group of people, actually visualize what is it that you're fearing? What do you think is going to happen? And I think what we often find is that our minds are playing tricks on us and creating a fear that's much worse than what the actual situation will be. So visualizing what it will feel like to get through the fear is powerful. So number one, loneliness. Number two, fear. Number three, stifled. When we feel stifled or we feel small in our lives, that causes misery. And by the way, these three things come from Brendan Burchard, who's a wonderful coach. And Brendan, shout out to you for all the great things you've done in my life. But when Brendan said stifled, that one didn't quite work for me. And so I wanted to replace that and drill into it a little bit. So for me, stifled wasn't quite working, and I used the word diminished. When I'm feeling diminished in my life, I start feeling pretty sad. I start feeling pretty low, pretty down. And diminished really has this feeling of feeling small. And so whether it's at work or whether it's in my relationship or a friendship or my self-talk, I can really feel diminished sometimes. And so I started to dig into this a little bit. What is it that's causing these feelings of diminishment? Well, our minds really love control. And so I want you to write down the word control and say, where is it in my life that I feel like I either do or don't have control? Where you feel like you do have control, how does that feel? Do you feel relatively happy or stable? What about the places where you don't feel like you have control? And so I started thinking, well, what is it that we're looking for in control? And there's two sides to the coin of control. Number one is power, and number two is choice. So when we're looking for control, we're either seeking power or we're seeking choice. And when we have neither of those, that's the definition of feeling diminished. That's the definition of feeling stifled. And so what I want you to do in those situations is start asking some questions. Do I have the ability to get power? Or do I have the ability to command power by walking into a room and being more present, sending an energy of power out into the room? It doesn't have to mean a power position in a hierarchical sense. It means commanding power. So how can you do that? So that's number one. Number two, do I have choice? And in a work situation, do I have choice of a project that I'm working on? But the beautiful thing about our minds is we always have a choice. We always can choose to show up differently. And so one of the things I want to challenge you on is, if you feel like you don't have choice in a situation, that's the definition of victim orientation. A person who shows up and says, I have no choices, I'm stuck, there's nothing I can do. That's really being a victim, isn't it? And so I want you to look for places where you feel like you don't have control, and I want you to seek out either that power or that choice in your life. So try it out. So let's review again. The things that cause us to feel miserable. Number one, loneliness, and we talked about creating authentic connection in your life. Number two is fear, and we talked about visualizing what it will feel like to get through what it is that you fear. And number three, we talked about stifled or diminished, and this need for control, which has two sides, power and choice. And so I'm going to leave you with that and say, please share the videos. Please continue to get the word out there. Let's keep the conversation going. I really am trying to get a message out there into the world that will serve. It certainly has served me in my life, these learnings that I've done. It's served other people that I've talked to, other people that I've coached, and I hope it will serve you in some way. So I hope you've written this stuff down and that you'll go back to it and refer to it when you're feeling miserable or feeling down. And I'm going to see you back here again next week. And until then, go out every single day. Be present and aware in every situation. Be kind and gentle to yourself and to others. And if you need a mantra, repeat the words, be, here, now. Thank you.